Good morning. How are y'all doing? Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is about the red flags and also things to know in general about H1B. This is not going to be a step-by-step of explaining every single nugget of H1B, but just more high level. I'll try to capture all this in about 15 minutes, but happy to answer any questions that you may have. Uh, if y'all are watching Green Card Guys TV for the first time, welcome. My name is John Ting. I practice immigration law ever since I graduated law school. So here I am wanting to share some tips about H1B because really the first tip here that you need to know is that H1B registration is coming up the first week of March, okay? The first week, it lasts about 2 weeks. So you need to get on top of this. And before I share my presentation, really need to know, the red flags about this kind of application, and especially the registration period, because when you miss it, here's the thing: well, of course, there's several, but the first thing I think of is if you miss the registration period, there's no like second window per se. There's no exception. So the very first step, we're going to talk about the steps, but the very first one is for registration. Now they used a little history here. They used to call it lottery. I still think it's considered lottery because you're randomly selected as the foreign national applicant. But the thing is that they don't call it lottery. The main difference from several years ago until now is that several years ago, the first week of is basically first come, first serve. The first week of April is still random, but in a sense that you had to pay your lawyer if you had one, or the company has to, of course. I'm assuming that a lot of people join the show right now are employers or HR recruiter, that you had to pay a lawyer everything. I mean, maybe you still do. I do it differently at Teen Law Group. But when you did provide all the package at once before the old way, and you don't get selected, it would have essentially been a waste of your fee, right? When you pay the immigration lawyer, whoever you paid. And I don't know how the law firms do it. I need to check with others, but we offer 3 different plans. But I'll give you a quick idea. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. Is that we charge a lower amount, much lower amount, just for registration only. Because does it make sense for you to sign a quote or a contract to pay the full price if you don't get if your foreign national applicant does not get selected? So again, that's step number 1. Now I'm going to share the presentation. Let's see. All right. Now today we're going to talk about, we have several different folders, but today we're going to talk about H1B. Now here it is. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, I'm just using this presentation properly for the first time. And you can see the first thing we want to talk about is who qualifies. All right, so you might not know this, but the first thing is you need to have a degree. Okay, and so that's really the second tip, is that you don't have to physically have the degree in your hands at the time of doing the registration. Thank goodness. Okay, you can provide, and that's why it's great to have it in what we call it, at least I call it bifurcated, multiple steps, because you can provide that degree later on when you file the actual package, and that is when you get selected, okay, for the H1B registration. So registration again is in early March, but the deadline to file the actual package is end of June. So you have plenty of time. You probably walk the stage, or I don't know your school does it now still, but maybe virtually, remotely. But let's go back to who qualifies. And by the way, folks, I'm happy to answer any questions. So let me know in the comments, LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you're watching this. You're always welcome to drop in some questions as comments. I'm happy to answer that on the spot or maybe towards the end of the show, okay, the webinar. All right, so the first thing here is who qualifies. And let me see here. Okay, so eligibility, all right? Eligibility, there's three different, categories of H1B, but the most popular one and most common one is for the specialty occupation. Okay, we won't go into detail about that, but we do have some examples about specialty occupation, what that is. Because just because you have a degree, whether it's undergraduate or master's, that by itself is not enough. Okay, because it has to be considered what they call USCIS calls specialty occupation. So there's a definition. I put it quotations several times on these webinars or the shows because it's there's as lawyers, there's always some argument to argue in your favor that this job or position is a specialty occupation. So with that being said, let's go to the next one. All right, and okay, we talked about who qualifies just briefly. But the thing is, the thing about who qualifies, don't give up, okay? Don't assume that the job title, even if you as an employer, that job title might not qualify for H1B. That's why we're here. That's why lawyers exist, to review it for you, all right? So that's why I won't go into full detail because there's a definition, but just because if I share a definition, you might give up, right? So schedule a call with us. We will have our phone number down down below, which, by the way, this is a great time for me to share. If you're just now joining, welcome. There is a link down below in the description box. There should be where you can receive more tips in the future. So if you just maybe you're watching this later on, because I think LinkedIn or definitely YouTube, but I think LinkedIn saves the recording later on. But click the link so we can send you more information, especially a free guide that has answers to common questions, really in the perspective of employers. All right, so some secrets. Well, this is just one of them, but I just mentioned two things. Is number one, it's only $10 for registration. USCIS fee for step number one is only $10. Okay. So, before several years ago with the lottery process that they called it, it was really expensive because you're paying the whole shebang and then you find out your applicant's not selected. That's very frustrating. So in some ways, I really believe that at least a two-step process is, I like to call it the Texas two-step, but anyway, to remember it. And yeah, and again, I mentioned the foreign national applicant can still be registered. You would have to register them, by the way, on the employer side. Of course, the law firm can help you with that. But even if have not actually graduated yet, no degree in hand. All right. Let's see here. So here's some example of job types, ranging from accounting, architecture. You want to think of specialty occupation as something that someone has more specialized knowledge for based on your degree. Now the job, let's say because a job is, I guess you could say there's a con or disadvantage in a way, is that in terms of eligibility, is that just because a job may fall under this, maybe it was an accountant or something. Well, accountant, you need definitely to go through the qualifications, but let's say being like coding, because you can learn coding outside of college, right? I mean, I think it's a lot of, you could be doing that training afterwards or to get those credentials, but coding, what if you had a liberal arts type of degree, but then you went to coding as a job? That's not going to fly. Your degree has to match the occupation, the job. So that's something we look at as well, because some people, that's part of our legal strategy in a strategy session, because if you have the degree from a different country, and different countries and their universities may have a very a more broad title for the degree, don't give up. It still could work. Okay. I, of course, just have to give you the general rule, but at the same time, it could work for you. And that's worked out for our client. So, a secret. All right. We're going to, go to secrets here. One of the secrets that's not listed on the webinar page right here is that it can include people who have a undergraduate degree from outside of the United States. So that's great. Wonderful news. However, if you maybe heard of the exception where you can, you can have a master's degree and get registered. Unfortunately, a master's degree from abroad outside the United States does not count. All right, so keep that in mind. I've been talking a lot, but of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. Drop it in the comments. All right, so man, it's difficult to get down in 15 minutes, but let's see here. Let me share with you. Okay. So we talked about some of the pros, secret pros. I say secret because it's not necessarily well streamlined on the USCIS website to share with you. The cons is that there's a limit, unfortunately. Okay. There's a limit of how many number of visas allowed. The USCIS, the Congress likes to put limits on things, unfortunately. So there's about, I believe, 66,000 of these visas available for people who have an undergraduate degree, and extra 20,000 for people who have a master's degree. Now, the thing is that, of course, with the way it works now, with it being $10 for registration, more people are going to apply. So the chances of you being selected, just like the lottery in general, right? Playing the gambling type of lottery, more people that apply, more people buy quote unquote a ticket, $10 ticket, your chances are lower, but that doesn't mean you should give up. Okay. And also the thing about this is that if you, if you work for a hospital or a nonprofit entity, you might be able to qualify. It's one of those type of entities where you can qualify for H1B without having to go through this whole registration process. You can apply at any time of the year. All right. So that's one of the cons, is that if it's something we call cap, subject to the cap, which is that limited number of visas, then you have to submit the registration online through the USCIS portal in March, and it's only open in March. The last past couple of years, they've talked about, if there are any slots open, where let's say, for example, someone gets selected in registration, but then maybe so this is really important information for folks in HR and recruitment, is that you may have, sent some kind of an offer, extended offer to a foreign national applicant. Maybe that person got an offer from another company. You didn't know about it. That's the good thing about the $10. You've done it, whether you've done it yourself, online registration, or you hired a law firm to help you. And that's why we charge a lower cost in the front end for this very first step. But let's say you do get selected, or maybe the foreign national applicant says, just forget it. I'm just going to go back to their country, which is really low chances in that regard. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And that's why if someone gets selected, that more spots could be open later in the year after USCIS figures out, well, okay, 500 people that did get selected, they didn't take the next step to apply before the end of June. So that's a good thing about the two-step process. That you can capture the unused visas. All right. Now the cons about another con about H1B in general is that you have to pick up the visa. A lot of people don't. So this goes into the step-by-step as well, is that step number one is registration. We talked about that, $10. The step two is a minimum $460 to USCIS. There's a couple other fees that's more expensive. But keep in mind that after you get approved, you get selected in registration, then you get approved for the actual package. All right. And that could take a couple months, but we'll talk more about step by step in a bit. And then you have to pick up your visa because the foreign national, your candidate, could be here in the United States or they could be abroad. If they're abroad, it's easier in the sense that they don't have to fly back. But right now, you have to fly back to your country of nationality to quote unquote pick up your visa. And the U.S. government is the State Department is trying to be better about this whole process, at least for renewals. Just a couple of days ago, they just announced that at least for renewing the visa, people don't have to go back to the country of nationality just to get the visa in the passport. Okay, so the visa is essentially that fancy looking thing. I should have put a screenshot on this about this, how it looks. But some of y'all already know what it kind of looks like, as like the red banner across with the US flag and all that in the silhouette. So that kind of give you an idea. Excuse me. All right. So yeah, that was more about the step-by-step. We also have to, the thing I didn't mention before is a start date. All right. So the start date is October 1st. So that's really important for you to know, because some of y'all think, especially if it's someone who's abroad, that you think that, oh, they got approved, they got the visa, they can start like tomorrow. No, it technically has to be October 1st. Okay. Now, if the person is here in the United States and you already know about them because maybe they've been working with you through OPT, as optical practical training, OPT, and then you already know about them, but technically, or they're already working with you, but that doesn't actually mean. Optional practical training, not optical. Optical, I was thinking like optometry. All right, so anyways, let's see if there's any questions here. Yeah, thanks, Maria. Oh, hi, Chiku. Nice to see you. Let's see. I see more people showing up. So welcome to the show. My name is John Ting. I'm with greencardguys.tv, and I am an immigration lawyer with Ting Law Group. And we're here to help you your workforce live and work in America freely and make it the process, the journey smooth for you, okay, as a company, because there's a lot of pitfalls. I'll just give you an example of one of our university clients. They're helping out with the renewal of the H1B, and it's not subject to a cap, so it's not subject to that limited number of visas, thank God. But they were doing some step, like they filed something called prevailing wage. So there is a form for prevailing wage. That's a step in an early process for residency through employment, but it's not required to file through for H1B. Okay. But it's something that we do as part of our strategy meeting to find out what is the prevailing wage. So that's something important, definitely for employers to know, is that, we have to find out what the prevailing wage is for you. So some people might think, oh, this position's like 40,000. Well, we check, it's based on basically cost of living adjustment, COLA, and we check by the county. The government has a website about this. So it's clearly definitely not us making it up. And over the years, I don't know, something about pandemic, inflation, the salaries have increased. Now, it doesn't give you a range. Essentially, they call it prevailing wage, but it's more like, and I hate to call it minimum wage, but you have to pay above that prevailing wage, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. It's very important because, some employers have talked to us and said, well, I'm expecting to pay. Some people don't even ask, but we proactively ask because we don't want to waste your time on this whole process. So if you're just wondering, a couple of questions that we talked about, or concerns that we talked about at the top of the webinar, is that, if the position even qualifies for H1B visa. It'd be great if it does, but that's really the first question. The second one that most employers HR have is, what is the prevailing wage? What is the minimum salary I have to offer to extend to them? And so this gets a lot of people in HR recruiters in a little pickle because by the time they come to us, and I think many law firms that handle business immigration cases, they've already extended an offer. So it gets a little, it can be a slightly awkward. Maybe we're just assuming things, but I would think it'd be awkward if you're like, oh, never mind. I have to retract my offer because the salary is a bit higher than I expected. So please, if you're watching this after the live show, the live webinar, it's okay. Contact us. We're happy to chat with y'all. If you are watching this with with this week, today's Wednesday, but if you watch it by this week and you give us a call, we'll definitely like automatically just offer you free 15-minute consultation, answer your questions. Okay. There's a whole lot to cover. Wow, I've gone 5 minutes over than I expected. But let's see here. Let's see what else I should cover for y'all. And yes, in terms of the family members, because some foreign nationals typically already know this, but maybe you as an employer don't know this. But yes, the typical question is, can the family members come? It's not every family member. It can be a spouse. We call it dependent. So H4 visa. That's a separate application. It doesn't go at the same time as registration. So then, and then so that, but yeah, the thing that Congress needs to change reform wise, I'm not going to go full detail right now, but it goes into the thing about the children who come here through their parents, whether one parent or both, on H1B or H4 for the child, typically because of the long wait time for residency, especially for nationals of China and India, that the child may eventually I don't want to say overstay, but age out, because it's only allowed until the age 21. Okay, for the child. So it's very frustrating. It's a very frustrating thing, and because some people think, well, well, what do you do? What do you do about your child? Like, so I think what the government's doing, I don't know government policy on this, but I'm thinking that they want to force people to change status. The children who eventually age out, they want them to go to college, university, because it's expensive here in America. So whatever you want to think about the cost, but I think we can all agree that it's freaking expensive. Let's see here. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions? All right, let's see. Let me take a moment to pause to see if you do. All right. Well, let's see what else to share with y'all. There's just so much to share. Okay. Well, that basically covers it for today. If you have any questions, welcome to contact us. And you can see up here, freequizvisa.com. If you just want to chat with us, it'll be a lot faster if you're able to fill out those just a few questions to understand your business better, or whether you're the HR recruiter or the business owner, entrepreneur, startup, whatever size company you are. It's better if you fill out the form above, or you could be the foreign national applicant. We get a lot of calls from applicants themselves first. Sometimes I think because, especially if it's a smaller company, they're like, they don't want to deal with it, right? They just want to have the foreign national find a lawyer first. So that's understandable. But please keep in mind, I think most lawyers, we know this, or they do know this, that I want to proactively tell you that even if you're a foreign national and you want us to help, we're happy to do it. But the employer is technically the client. Okay, just like state by state, the ethics rule. That's what it is. I'll say. Okay, so keep that in mind. But we are different than many other law firms, that we still want to share updates, but we're not going to share confidential information that will go against the interest of your employer, the company. All right, so just keep that in mind. Okay, folks, thank you so much and have a wonderful week and talk to you soon. Take care now.